whether it's legal. This is the cannabis psychedelic process, which is where you prepare yourself for a psychedelic experience. You create the correct set and setting for a psychedelic experience. You have the psychedelic experience. You ground yourself in that psychedelic experience, and you integrate that psychedelic experience. And the reason I'm talking about this and feel qualified is because I've been involved with cannabis for 30 years. I work for the US government. Sorry, if you want to question that, ask me later. I work for the Thai government. I'm a United States delegate to the United Nations. I created the first CBD company in Australia. I'm the chairman of the hemp plastic company. I've developed and founded the hemp foods and hemp plastic industry in the United Kingdom, Europe, Australia, Japan, and some work in Africa recently. I created the first psychedelic manufacturing company for biosynthetic production of psilocybin, and I'm the chief trainer of cannabis psychedelics, as well as the founder of the Happy Herb Clinic, which sells medical cannabis. I grew up in London taking lots of drugs. I studied psychedelics with people like Terence McKenna in nightclubs in London. I spent time in Asia living in traditional cultures. I smoked opium there, where I discovered how it is to live in the clouds. I had bad, negative psychedelic experiences until I decided cannabis was my plant and travelled the United Kingdom to every festival for multiple years, selling hemp ice cream and hemp food products of every form. I've written 15 books on cannabis, cannabis psychedelics and the hemp industry, and my boss is cannabis, as many people are connected with this plant here today. So what cannabis is not is mushrooms or LSD. It's not a psychedelic in itself, is what most people believe. In fact, cannabis is one of the Earth's most persecuted commodities, most people like to think. I like to think it's the most important commodity that's ever been here, and it's only been persecuted for such a short time in history. Thousands of years we've used cannabis, from the Indian culture to the Chinese culture to the Egyptian culture, and the Romans used cannabis as a psychedelic specifically. The history of cannabis and hemp's use in Australia started in 1788 with the importation of hemp seeds. And of course we all know there's been a big stigma around hemp and cannabis. Hemp being the high CBD, marijuana being the low THC version. And hemp is legal, but hemp foods was legalized was even legalized after cannabis in 2017. And I got involved with hemp as a food because our brains consist of 60% essential fatty acids, as 30% omega-3 and 30% omega-6. Hemp, as I said, is legal today and is now grown throughout Australia. This is the kind of fields that we planted maybe 10 years ago now, 500-acre farms in Victoria. These crops that I've grown throughout the country are used for all these different uses. That's come from the one plant, everything from textile fibers to food to bioplastics to skincare, building and animal bedding. So I've created a public company listing from those hippie days in a van. I've worked with the First Lady of Japan. I've been on stage in Tokyo. I've promoted hemp and cannabis on the London tube stations, in Times Square in New York. Created, as I said, Delica, which is the first psilocybin biosynthetic manufacturing company. And psilocybin is now legal and has been for a couple of years here. Though there's probably only a half a dozen people that have truly paid for psilocybin therapy. It is available and you can get it now in Victoria if you have a spare $20,000 or so. Which, if you do, come and see me after. I'd love to have a chat. So all the different uses of cannabis, they have anti-proliferative, anti-spasmodic, they're bone stimulants, they're anti-inflammatory, there's lots of things that why cannabis is great. In fact, it's the single most versatile herbal remedy and the most useful plant on earth, according to Dr. Ethan Russell. And it contains all these things for pain relief, neuroprotective effects, and even the TGA agrees that it has medicinal effects. I'm not going to play this video, but this is a video from, just briefly, from CNN promoting the benefits of THC and CBD plants for medicinal uses, particularly for young children. Why do we need cannabis as a psychedelic? Because 15% of the people in the entire world have a mental health illness today. And if you look around the world to see some of the things that are happening, you can probably understand why. 1 in 7, that's at least 2 or 3 of us here today, have a mental health illness and use antidepressants. That's okay, it's normalized. Suicide is the most common death or cause of death in Australians from the age 15 to 44. So we have a significant issue, and that's why I use cannabis. But how does it work? Well, it works because it is a true psychedelic medicine, which means a drug that has a change in level of consciousness in the mind. It works on the 5-HT21A receptors, it works on the serotonergic reactions and functions, as well as dopamine through a number of different receptor sites in the brain. And this is how the receptor sites, particularly the GPR15 site, connects as a lock and key mechanism. Mothers giving breast milk are is the only time humans produce cannabinoids, because babies need them to live. There's a lot of evidence on all of the benefits, and saying that actually people who consume cannabis and have babies have cleverer babies. And the receptor sites are throughout the body, and the endocannabinoid system is even antidepressive and anti-anxiety. But we're here to talk about cannabis psychedelics, which is the most gentle of all psychedelics. And it's the only psychedelic we can actually leave the experience, and is actually relatively affordable compared to the psilocybin and other psychedelics that are legal here today. Cannabis is complex, as I'm sure everybody knows by now. Whole plant extracts are important, entourage effects are important, and there's a lot of science around terpenes, flavonoids, esters, alcohols, yeasts, and many other things. One of the things that I'll talk about in a bit more detail today are terpenes. When just smelling a rose actually creates love chemicals, which is why roses are connected with love chemicals. It's also been shown that smelling roses can actually support anti-cancerous effects in the liver. There are many benefits to terpenes, and everything you smell has terpenes. Citronella, myrcene, limonene comes from lemons, unsurprisingly. They all have benefits, and they also have different effects and affect how cannabis works with you. Cannabis works with flowers, oils, hash, resins, and edibles. And according to a pulmonary function laboratory, smoking marijuana actually has a protective effect on the lungs. But is it safe? And if you watch videos that were created some time ago, you might think that cannabis makes you go wild, watching the person on the piano and looking at his face, it looks quite serious, like he's taking cannabis. Look at him, evil person. That's what we got brought up to believe, and this information led people like the president of the AMA to say that real cannabis is not safe and that Australians need synthetic cannabinoids, where really there are no deaths from cannabis use anywhere, according to the professor of psychiatry at Harvard University, who obviously wasn't paid off. In fact, cannabis is safer than water, and I've written a paper on that. So let me go more detail now, though, on the benefits and the uses of cannabis as a psychedelic medicine. Cannabis, as I said, is a gentle plant where it gives you agency to leave the experience, where you gain deep insights, and you may change your life forever with these experiences. Some people say it's as strong as ayahuasca, and that you can have visuals like DMT. Now, if you're a regular smoker and you don't believe that, well, trust me, but I came to Nimbin when I first started and found a regular smoker and said, let me see if I can do this to someone who smokes cannabis regularly, and absolutely it works for everybody. And it's because the entire protocol that I'm about to go through leads to these kind of experiences where people get to face the shadows, they face their fears, where they feel deep-seated trauma within their body, to become aware of unconscious patterns. These are experiences that leave people feeling stronger, more empowered, brave and lighter, and more trust of themselves. And I've seen these people, this is not just after the experience, this is long-lasting effects, and I've seen these people change in the community around here. So the cannabis psychedelic experience starts very clearly with preparation. Preparation starts with a medical intake form where we connect with the client, and that connection is really important. Understanding not only their physiological needs, but their psychological needs, their spiritual and world view, so that we can understand each other and relate to each other. We don't work with people with a number of contraindications, and they're not many for cannabis, but they do exist. And after we agree to move forward, we create a mindset, we create the intention and the plan for how we're going to work together. And the really the reason you're coming for a psychedelic experience. Because if you're coming for a psychedelic experience to feel one with everything and God, well, you can kind of do that in your own home. But if you want to actually make some deep life changes, then you can choose to do that very consciously. And we do that in nature-based settings. So we don't do that in hospitals with pictures of nature. We do that where we all feel connected. But the action happens and starts with ritual, where rituals have happened all over the world for many thousands of years. And I choose rituals that are not denominational, so not religious, but earth-based, using the elements of fire, water, air, etc. These are the elements that we all are connected to if we are humans and live on this planet. And creating a ritual creates a strong beginning and focus where we can start to use tools like breathwork and mindfulness, and ultimately technodelics. Technodelics is a new term that has been created where we use technology to actually create and affect our psychological sense. We do that through particularly vibrations. So when we have good vibrations and we feel good with someone, it's because we are resonating with them. We are in harmony with somebody. We are in harmony with an experience. Personally, I don't feel very harmonious with a laptop, but some people could, because you can really connect, because everything has a vibration, even the things that are solid. Most humans feel connected with each other though, and a sense of nature. And that can be affected by sound waves and light waves, which go through water. Our bodies, which are created in water, our earth is predominantly water, is very much affected by these waves. On a sound bed, we will feel the low frequency vibrations through strong transducers, and these technologies have been dealt specifically and created specifically for psychedelic experiences. We also use light waves. Light waves come in different nanometers to penetrate into the skin, but they also come in different frequencies. Different colors of light create different experiences, and a light machine looks something like this. But when we're having a light machine laying on the sound bed, the actual real work happens inside. And usually putting an eye mask on and going inside is the experience that we're looking for, what we get from this wonderful medicine. The medicine is this juicy flower here that comes from this amazing plant. And I now sell this amazing plant. I sell drugs. Dr. Uggs sells drugs legally here in Australia, one of many physicians where you can buy legal medical cannabis. So you can get these feelings and have these experiences. But after those experiences, you need grounding. Grounding is required by taking your feet off, walking on the earth, by eating crunchy foods, by drinking citric acids, things like orange juice, and then ultimately by journaling, by writing down your feelings and your experiences. Integration is the critical part of the entire process. Because we don't want to just have another wonderful experience. Instead, we actually need integration support, and there are integration specialists, and there are courses just on integration, which ultimately lead to these deep-seated experiences. Cannabis psychedelics as an experience has been created by numerous amazing people from around the world, psychologists, doctors, professors, psychedelic experience people who have done this all their lives, people who have focused on sound and vibration, or psychologists, professors, mindfulness practitioners, somatic practitioners, yogis, chocolate wizards, Mongolian shamans, indigenous shamans, and historians and the like. These are all people who are on the course where we now teach people to offer this space of psychedelic therapy. Because I believe working together works, and if you want to experience cannabis psychedelics, you can come and have the experience, or you can learn the training by yourself. This is a QR code for the training. I'm happy to give you the website, which is just cannabispsychedelics.com.au. And if you want to consume cannabis legally, then come and visit the Happy Clinic. That's the conclusion of my talk for this evening. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you for listening.
That was a very interesting presentation.
Thank you.
That was a lot, very intensely. Yeah, great. I'm sure we're going to have lots of questions. Does anyone have a question right at the start?
So,
What kind of nature spaces do you do the sessions in?
what type of nature spaces do we do the sessions in? At the moment, I run experiences and retreats from my home in just outside of Mullumbimby, 5 minutes outside of Mullumbimby. I've got trainers, facilitators who offer this experience up and down the east coast of Australia as well. And each person's location is different and separate. Now I say run it in nature, I actually run it in a room inside a house, but it's next to nature. So you come in through nature and you go out back to nature, but the room is contained because a contained safe space is part of safety. And safety is a very critical part of this overall experience. I hope that helps. Thank you for the question. Any more questions?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You said that once you're having the experience, you can come out of the experience with a psychedelic. How is that possible?
A good question there. So usually when you take a psychedelic, such as psilocybin, LSD, ayahuasca, it's like getting on a train, going on a journey, and you get off at another station later on after the experience. There's no getting off the train. It's a fast train, you get off it. With cannabis, it's a gentle train. And it's like saying to the conductor, oh, I know we're going in this way now, but I actually don't want to go that way anymore, I want to go this way. And the train tracks just move to where you want them. So it's very easy to control. Cannabis is very gentle in its spirit and allows you to not go, if you don't want to go too deep, and if you've got, which is particularly important for people with deep-seated PTSD who have had some really serious effects in their life, you know, maybe not dealing with it all at once, they want to feel safe to be able to do that and have the own agency to make those choices. So that's one experience. But if you want to leave the experience altogether, and that's never yet happened to me fully, I had one person in on all the people that I've given this experience to, who it was too much for, and he had his own reasons for that, but he did come back into the experience later on. But he was able to say, I want to step out of this. And to step out of it is really simple, because if you imagine the actual experience as someone, as you're laying down on a sound vibrational bed with an eye mask on, you're deep into an experience, and you have loud sound, you're feeling the sound, you're being pumped with terpenes in the air. There's a lot of intensity in that experience, and all of those tools are really helpful because they allow you to turn down the experience. By turning down the experience, allows you to step out of it, and you can do that at different levels. So if you're having the light machine, for example, you take off the light machine, which is extremely intense. If you want to turn down the music or turn off the vibration, you turn off the vibration. If you want to change the vibe of the music, you could do that potentially as well. But then next level is you can take off the eye mask if you had an eye mask on, and you can sit up. Those already steps make a significant difference from where you're at, because of all those steps, to where you will be, and you'll start to be high. You'll still be high, but you won't be in a psychedelic state of being high. So then there's more levels after that, and they include homeopathic remedies like rescue remedy, drinking orange juice, eating a cracker or crispy chips or something crunchy, i.e. textures. These are all things that bring you onto the ground. Then being in nature, taking off your shoes, walking onto nature, really grounding yourself in nature and having a little bit of touch. So in these experiences we have agreements with the clients that where there's a safe place to touch them, and that's usually on their shoulders or their arm, and that's what I ask for permission to do. The only time I'll ever break that is if I feel that they're going to be in danger to themselves or endangering other person, otherwise there is no touch. But in that experience, if they want to come out of the experience, some touch helps as well. And usually, so they're all a whole bunch of different tricks, and there's more, but all of those tricks pretty much will bring anyone out of the psychedelic experience into the feeling high, and then it's just a matter of time to get someone out. And that depends on how much they've consumed, but in this professional setting, we don't need to consume much cannabis. So it's not about the quantity of cannabis that you consume to have this psychedelic experience. It's about the overall and total process of it. So you actually need really small amounts of the medicine, which also makes it really easy to come out of that psychedelic experience. Hope that helps.
What preparations are you using? Obviously you're using cannabis, but are you testing it? Are you talking about pumping service? Obviously it's a combination of it, or?
Well, it's a combination of all those technologies. So what preparation? I think what you mean.
Like extract.
I understand what you mean. Yeah. So we use flour,
yeah,
and we vape flour. Okay, and there's very clear reasons for that, and pretty much smoking it would work as well.
It's to do with the law, basically.
No, it's not to do with the law. No. It's to do with the. I mean, you can consume cannabis how you like, legally. If you have a legal prescription, so legally you have to have a prescription, legally you bring your own cannabis, and legally you consume that cannabis in the form that you choose. Now, if I'm recommending that they take it in a vaporizer, then that's the form that they can choose. Vaporizing it is the healthiest way to consume cannabis. It's the most controllable way to consume cannabis, and you can choose very specific temperatures. So I recommend the Volcano Vaporizer, which has which you can put a gram of flour in, which is a relatively large quantity, into a balloon, and you can allow the terpenes to come off at a particular amount. By vaporizing it, same as with smoking it, it goes straight through the blood-brain barrier, and you feel that experience really quickly within a few minutes. It's also very controllable and lasts for a very clearly controllable length of time, which is very different, obviously, to edibles, as the opposite extreme from vaporization. So that's generally why we use flowers and vaporization. And flower being as close to nature as possible. I'm not against using some oils and resins and vape pens. If they're, again, the consumer or the client will bring their own medicine, but I will recommend that they have a balance of different cannabinoids and terpene profiles, than more than one variety or one cultivar. So again, to have the psychedelic experiences, you'll need one variety and you'll need another variety. Your variety will work a little bit for him, his variety will work for a little bit for you, but that's why I will generally recommend a couple of different cultivars to ensure that you get enough terpene profiles from a high THC, obviously, strains.
And you talk about that with the person prior to the appointment.
Yeah, that's all the medical intake side of things. Correct, yeah. So that all happens in advance, all the details are worked out in advance. On the day, all we do is repeat the instructions for safety. Just again, connection is like, hey, you're in my space here, we've talked about this, you know what's going to happen, I'm going to repeat what happens, I'm going to repeat the boundaries, I'm going to repeat the experience that you're going to have, and then this is how it's going to end, and these are the agreements you've signed and agreed, which is you don't leave the space, you don't do anything that will harm yourself or others until we both agree that you can move on.
And how long do the sessions last for?
The sessions last for 4 hours from the time you arrive to the time you leave. So that includes the instructions and going over things. It consumes a ritual, it includes a ritual, it includes about 2.5 hours approximately of journeying on time on the sound beds. That includes journaling after, and then it includes grounding. So that whole thing can happen in 4 hours on the day, plus the initial intake questionnaire and interview, plus an integration session that we follow up a few days later to ensure that that person is grounding that information moving forward.
And last question, sorry.
Yep, it's okay.
Obviously you've done quite a lot now with people. What is the main reason people are coming to see you?
There are so many different reasons why people come to have psychedelic experiences. So the main reason is mental health. How about that? I actually prefer that people come to me with wellness, who are extremely well and just want to be better people. But I'll work with anybody for any reason that they want to come and feel called to use this plant and have a deep-seated experience. So really, that's why I use it. I use it to see how I can better myself and to vision things. I treat company directors sometimes, so like a team that comes together and they want to grow their business or get creative or can't deal with something that they're stuck in. I'll also deal with couples, so who are having couple therapy, which is extremely complicated because for couples, for example, if you're a couple, sorry, I'm pointing at you guys, but if you're a couple, you have your issues, and you too have your issues. So it's actually 3 people I'm dealing with, even though it's 2, plus the plant that's having an interaction on all of those levels. But it is actually really effective and actually brings up a lot of stuff. So I can do that as well. I prefer one-on-ones with people because generally that's because most people are, I can give confidence to one person with the structure to allow them to go deeper into what they're doing. But to really do that, most people really just want to do that in private because it's their deep stuff. And sometimes they know what that deep stuff is, it's a childhood wound. Sometimes they don't know what it is, and they just have a feeling that there's something wrong and stuck there. And sometimes that feeling will come up with a memory, or sometimes it will come up from a physical pain that they thought was physical, but it's actually an emotional pain that is stuck there. So there's many different reasons why people come. Some people come from anxiety, some people come with depression, some people come because they want something new. Some people come, as I said, just because they're well and they want to improve themselves and their experience of life and an understanding of life in general.
And do also do people have similar effects when they don't use THC, like don't use cannabis on the platform as well?
That's a great question, and yeah, I do offer sessions without cannabis on the sound bed with the light experiences, and yes, it is a stepping stone to cannabis psychedelic therapy, where you can actually have a psychedelic experience just by using sound and light vibrations. You don't actually need plant medicines for those things. And in fact, you know, I guess most, and I'm just going to answer another question, is that most people do not come to me more than once for a cannabis psychedelic session because they don't need to. It's not something you come for fun for, really. I mean, it's not something you need to come back for. You come, you look at an issue, you deal with it, you move on, you're a new person. Maybe, of course, other issues come up in your life and it might be something that you come and use for that. But I refuse people who want to come back quickly unless they have a specifically good reason for it. And those who are scared of cannabis, those who have had really negative experiences with cannabis, they can simply have that experience, as you say, on a sound bed and have a sound journey. And it's extremely enlightening just that by itself.
Brilliant. Well, if you'll join me in thanking Paul. That was very interesting talk. And just a reminder, this is a collaboration between Mardi Gras and EGA. So if you're liking this content, a bit more psychedelic focus, there's some flyers up here for a conference we're running later this year on our website.
And if you want to buy drugs legally, come and see me. And we sell cannabis. So, my card is drugs, okay? In case you didn't know what I meant. Yeah.
Back to the psychedelic discussion.
Psychedelic is a way where change mind, change consciousness of mind, change way of thinking. Yeah.
Are you going to run that?
If you email me, I have friends in Japan who work in cannabis and psychedelic world, and they can give you a Japanese word if you like.
Did you mind to sit where am I to get the video? Just want to help me tether to my phone and maybe it. What audio are we using? Just audio. Yep. Just audio. Alright, that's it. So I'm just trying to find out. Let's do the time.
Give me a sec. I'm going to go sit in the van and just see if I got the big 40-inch ones. Otherwise, I'm going to set you up with
Just restart my computer. It's not great. If it comes down to it, I'll just